what you called an irregularity that related to the bid specification requirement of firearm licenses. Is that correct?
It was one of the issues that...
No, I'm just focusing on this one, not the rest.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And do you accept that the effect of the BAC's resolution in relation to this ground of cancellation was to undo a stage as early as the bid specification? Because you are effectively saying the bid specification ought not to have been framed like this, and therefore the tender document itself ought not to have been framed in this manner. So do you agree that your resolution as the BAC was effectively to undo a stage as early as the bid specification?
I agree. It was one of those reasons, Commissioner.
Yes. Now, can you show us where the BAC derives the power from to invalidate an entire tender process based on its view of shortcomings in the bid specification?
Chair, this particular matter was not invalidated by the BAC. The BEC brought a report with these resolutions already there that the tender must be cancelled. The BAC assessed and found additional matters which were added, and it's the three requirements that you just made reference to.
I'm asking you about the power. Can you just say, I may be wrong, as you seem to be suggesting, that it was the BAC that effectively, in fact, you've already agreed that it was the BAC that effectively upended the process going back to the bid specification. So what I'm saying is, show us where the power the BAC has to do that.
The BAC has power to recommend. The BAC doesn't have power to cancel. They have the power to recommend, and the accounting officer has the power to cancel. He has the authority not to agree to the recommendation that the BAC has, so they don't have that power. Okay,
where does the BAC, because the BAC can only make a recommendation that is based on a power that exists. So whether the power lay with the BAC or the accounting officer, show us where that power is.
Within this pack, it's not here.
A power, it does not need to be in this pack. Where does the power come from for an entire tender process to be undone from a stage as early as the bid specification? Where does that power come from?
The city manager delegates that in the form of appointment letters when he's delegating his powers to the BAC.
No, the municipal manager can only delegate powers that she herself has. So if you say that this is a power that rests on the accounting officer, the municipal manager, show me where that power comes from.
I don't have that information with me at present offhand, Chair. I will have to come back to you on that. But I can confirm to you that that power is by law rests with the city manager. He delegates that to the BAC through a letter when he appoints members.
You wouldn't know, you wouldn't be in a position to say by law that power vests in, if, as you've just said, you do not know where this comes from. Would you?
Chair, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Maybe I'm not.
So are you saying, okay, let me ask the question differently. Are you saying, as a matter of fact, if not law, the municipal manager does have the power to undo a tender process right from the start, the bid specification stage, based on shortcomings at that stage, undo it at right at the tail end? Are you saying the the municipal manager, has that power?
He has the powers, Chair.
Based on shortcomings in the bid specification?
Chair, he does have those powers.
I'm specific.
Yes, he does have those powers. If he picks up this is an anomaly that will lead to irregularities, he does have those powers.
I'm just thinking, the bid process is a very expensive process for the tenderers. I would imagine there's a lot of expense, in fact, even for the municipality itself, not only in monetary terms, but also in terms of the person hours that have to be used to run this entire process from the beginning all the way to the end. So are you saying the municipal manager can just sit by and say, right at the tail end, I may undo all of this based on the fact that the bid specification ought not to have provided in this manner?
He is the accounting officer, he has those powers. As long as he satisfies himself, he's got a duty to satisfy himself as well, with the reasons behind that, and he can take a decision of that. So by virtue of being an accounting officer, he does have those powers.
Do you agree though that a sensible way would be for the municipal manager to be in the know right from the beginning as to what the tender entails? Because if that were to be the position, this strange process would be obviated. The municipal manager would be able to pronounce right at the beginning and say, no, we can't have a tender process along these lines because there's everything wrong with a bid specification.
Chair, you will remember an advert is signed off by the accounting officer. Before any advert goes out, that's a specification. So at that point in time, if he wants, he could request a specific document and say, I want to see the contents of this specification. He has that authority and he can see that at that point.
Thank you very much for that response. Then surely the accounting officer cannot, having approved the bid specification, which finds its way into the tender document itself, cannot, having approved it at the tail end, say, oh, by the way, I've since changed my mind, and now I'm saying there was everything wrong with the bid specification. Surely that cannot be, because, as you say, the municipal manager will already have signed off on that document. They can't change their mind. Surely not.
Chair, I respectfully disagree with you. He is the accounting officer. We have to analyze the cost of compliance. In this terms, compliance is key. And if any irregularities if there's irregular expenditure mounting this tender, and the accounting officer would have been alarmed that there is an issue on the specifications, he will be held accountable. So the powers are with him, he can decide.
Signing off on that document right at the beginning, even before entities begin to put in bids, is an indication that the accounting officer is saying there is nothing wrong with this document. So the accounting officer is already happy that there are no irregularities. Otherwise, what's the point of the accounting officer signing off at the beginning? It would be pointless. So there's already a pronouncement on the existence or otherwise of irregularities. And in this instance, by signing off, the accounting officer is saying there are no irregularities. Surely, Mr. Mnisi.
Chair, I agree with you on that perspective. He would sign it off. He might not have picked up any irregularities. And just to add practically how it happens, these are delegated functions. So we rely on the work that the bid specification committee would have done. In practice, he does not request to review each terms of reference of the tender document, nor do I request that. We rely on the work of the BSC, the bid specification
but it
committee.
Goes beyond the bid. It goes beyond the bid specification committee. It goes to the person who actually takes the final decisions on these matters, and that person takes a decision right at the beginning and says everything is in order here. That's the last point on that one, but you may comment. I'll move on.
Chair, the accounting officer is ultimately responsible for the procurement environment of the city. He's ultimately responsible for ensuring that bid specifications are in place. The functions are delegated. He trusts the work of the BSC as a result of them being constituted by members of the department, specialists within supply chain management. I rely on their work as well. At the tail end of that process, if we identify an irregularity, we can't ignore that, even though we had signed on it previously. So the accounting officer, on the recommendations of BAC, then takes that decision after analyzing that. It's a sore point to experience, Chair, but it's necessary in order to avoid irregular expenditure. I wouldn't want irregular expenditure to be recovered for me as a result of overlooking a matter of this nature. I can recommend to the accounting officer, he still has the duty to evaluate those reasons, concur or refer them back. In this instance, he concurred with the reasons, and he approved.
Just one. There's a fancy Latin term, Mr. Mnisi, that says that an organ of state cannot revisit their decision if they are functus officio, which means basically that once an organ of state has taken, which would be the accounting officer here, once an organ of state has taken a decision on something, they do not have the power to revisit that decision. They would have to go elsewhere, court to be specific, to say, oh, by the way, I made a mistake by signing off on that document. Court, can you please set it aside? On what you are saying, which is the accounting officer is assisted by all the actors at these various stages and can then take a decision at the tail end, surely that has nothing to do with what the accounting officer has already signed off on. It will be whatever happens in accordance with what the accounting officer has already signed off on. Cannot revisit the decision on that aspect. Do you want to comment?
With your permission, yes, please, Chair. Firstly, in terms of the difficult legal terms that you had raised, I'm not aware of them. And of course, I'll request my legal team to help me clarify that if needs be. However, in the second aspect, I can confirm, I can comment on that, that the procurement process, Chairperson, is looked at holistically. Even if you pick up an error from the beginning of the process, you have a duty to raise that. If it's an error that's valid, that might lead to irregularity, you can't ignore that. We do take a decision to cancel that bid. We then leave that onus on any supplier who says, no, but you shouldn't have canceled this bid, because we make that public as well. Bidders ask us what happened and this, we'll inform them this was canceled because of these reasons. If a bidder chooses to take the city to court, we'll then deal with it at that stage. That's the process that we follow at the city from a practical perspective.
I asked my question about an empowering prescript without the knowledge of what you later told us, which is that the accounting officer signs off right at the beginning. Let me repeat my question, but adding to it what you told us. Is there any prescript that entitles the municipal manager to revisit and alter a decision on the bid specification? Can the municipality in law undo that decision? Is there a specific prescript that you can show us in that regard?
I think I can refer you to the city supply chain management policy.
Yes.
On that policy, it's clause 11, which terms evaluation of bids, clause 7.
Which says what? Because the very reference to evaluation does not seem to have anything to do with the municipal manager undoing the bid specification.
That clause...
You are talking evaluation.
That clause guides the cancellation of bids. In terms of cancellation of bids...
That still says nothing about the power of the municipal manager to undo a bid specification.
Chair, like I said, the accounting officer is responsible for managing the city in all respects. He has the powers to ensure
Let's leave it. I'm not done, but Commissioner Baloyi wants to engage you on this.
Yes. The city's SCM policy will tell us what the functions of the various committees are, including the role of the city manager, right?
Yes.
If I want to know what the powers of the city manager are, I'll have to go and look at the SCM policy when
Yes.
it comes to procurement matters.
Yes.
Okay. And unless it's in the policy, that power, unless it's prescribed by the policy, the city manager doesn't have it. Can we accept that as a proposition? That the powers of the city manager, they derive from the SCM policy relating to matters of procurement.
Commissioner, I can't accept that. What I can put to you is that the accounting officer is accountable for all aspects of the city.
Okay.
He needs,
Let me ask my question anyway. Are you saying to the chairperson and to us that the city manager plays a part in defining the specifications of a bid? And I'm asking you because my understanding from other evidence, including yours, is that the client, the user of that service that is being procured, is the one that defines the specifications. They said there's a committee, and it is that committee that takes into account what the user requires to specify the specifications. Now, your evidence suggests that the city manager is part of that process.
that's incorrect. That's not my evidence. Those are delegated functions to this bid.
Sorry, what is incorrect?
That's not my evidence. I did not say the city manager has a role in defining specifications. I said those are delegated functions which rest with the bid specification committee.
Yes.
The user department prepares terms of reference and presents those to the bid specification committee.
Yes.
The bid specification committee analyzes and assesses the contents of that and approves it accordingly.
Yes. But you see, you say the city manager, and I'm taking into account the other evidence you gave. In fact, the reason that you recommended, the BAC recommended the cancellation of TMPD 3, one of the reasons is the specification does not say anything about CIRA guidelines, and you say that was a valid reason for cancellation. Now, therefore, it must mean that should have been in the specification. You are saying to us that the city manager is entitled to refuse to approve on the basis that the specification didn't include the CIRA guidelines. That must mean that the city manager has a say into what goes into the bid specification. It means that, logically, it means that. It means the city manager has a role in what goes into the specification. In your case, right at the end, when the recommendation is made, the city manager will say, I don't like the fact that the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines, but that is to have a say in the bid specification. And unless it's in your supply chain management policy, which is not before us, but we will verify it for ourselves, unless it is in the SCM policy, that I want to suggest to you or to put to you that the city manager will be acting outside of his powers. If he tries to exercise a power that goes back to the specification and then say, that was not included and I don't like that fact and therefore I'm not approving. In short, what I'm saying to you, Mr. Mnisi, is you are not correct to say the city manager has any say whatsoever in the specifications.
May I please
Comment?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, I think firstly, the reasons for cancelling TMPD 3 is not only the 3 reasons that are recorded in the report, and I've raised that. And for the record, I just want to be clear. The primary reasons are contained in the probity report. These were 3 additional reasons.
Let's not discuss that. Let's not discuss that. I have mentioned to you one of the grounds. One of the grounds, because you mentioning the other things that I'm not referring to ends up obfuscating, in fact. I'm very specific. You've given 3 reasons why that tender was cancelled, and you've canvassed this with Mr. Chaskalson at length, so we don't need to go there. I've given you just one reason that you've given. You've said the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines, and that's one of the reasons we recommended to the city manager that the tender should not be approved or should not be awarded. From those facts, which we've established from your evidence, that's the facts. I'm saying to you, if this city manager says, I don't like the fact that the CIRA guidelines were not included in the specification, that is to have a say in the specification. And the city manager, I'll be surprised if your supply chain management policy empowers the city manager to have a say in the specification of the bid. I'm simply putting that to you. And if you say to me it does, the SEM policy does allow him to do that, I'm putting to you that we will look it up. We will look it up, and I'm brave enough to say to you there's no such provision in the policy.
Maybe to comment on that, I firstly indicated that specifications are delegated. The city manager doesn't have time to look at every single tender specification that go out. We literally take out hundreds, if not thousands, of documents that are advertised. The city manager will not have time to look at each and every single specifications whether he's happy with from the beginning. Practically, that's not possible, and practically that does not happen, and that's not my evidence. My evidence is that the work of the bid specification is delegated. The department initiates the compilation of the terms of reference. They present that to an independent committee called the Bid Specification Committee. The Bid Specification Committee interacts with the terms of reference and the key conditions that have been set within that process. They could either approve or disapprove that for whatever reason that they have. They then approve that accordingly. Once that's approved, an advert is issued, which is endorsed by myself as well as endorsed by the city manager. We rely on the work that was done by the BSC, that indeed these terms of reference are compliant. However, at the tail end, if there are issues that emanate in relation to this bid, as a result of issues in bid specification, the accounting officer does have the power to cancel that.
And you say that includes, the exercise of that power includes that the specification did not include a the requirement of CIRA guidelines. It didn't include that, and that the city manager has a power to rely on as a basis to refuse to approve the tender.
It would include any shortcomings which...
No, Mr. Mnisi, let's not do that. I'm asking you a very specific question. If I wanted to ask you a general question, I would have done so. I'm asking you a very specific question, and please answer my question. My question is, are you saying that the city manager has the power deriving from the supply chain management policy that when eventually the BAC presents to him its recommendation to approve a tender, he can say, the specification did not include the CIRA guidelines. I therefore am not going to approve because the CIRA guidelines were not included in the specification. You can say yes or no, and this doesn't require an explanation. I just want to know yes or no.
In that case, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let's continue, Mr. Mnisi, to a different point. Earlier, I think it was this morning, you said in response to a question by Commissioner Baloyi, you did not consider the tender process to have been corrupted by the fact that Sergeant Nkosi had accessed the draft admin report. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. If Sergeant Nkosi had access to the BEC draft admin report, which starts at page 158, the possibility exists that he could access any other bid documents. Do you accept that?
I can't accept that because I wouldn't know.
But you can't deny it as well.
I can't accept it and I can't deny it.
So you cannot discount the possibility that he could. Is that so?
Yes, yes.
Yes. At the very least, it's not speculation, please. I'm testing the witness. This has nothing to do with speculation. At the very least, the known fact of Sergeant Nkosi having access to a BEC document must have raised alarm bells. Correct?
No, not correct, Chair. There was no sensitive information, as I've stated earlier on, There's nothing confidential that's there or sensitive information in that leaked report that I confirmed is a leaked report.
What I'm saying is the fact that he could access an internal document. Doesn't matter what nature, it doesn't matter what effect it actually had or could not have had. What I'm focusing on is the fact of him being able to source an internal document. And what I'm saying is, surely that must have raised alarm bells.
From my perspective, my answer was no.
Is that purely because of the nature of the document?
Chair, the nature of that document was not sensitive. It only contained.
No, I'm
issues of
asking, are you saying in your case it did not? Are you saying that because of the nature of the document or not?
Yes.
So
saying
if he has sourced a fairly innocuous document, it basically means nothing. It does not matter to you that the very fact that he has accessed an innocuous document shows that he could very well access documents that are not innocuous at all. Is that not?
I've agreed to that. I said I am concerned.
So that possibility, the possibility of other documents which may not be innocuous, must surely raise alarm bells.
I agree to that, Chair.
Yes. So I must go back to Commissioner Baloyi's question then. If the possibility of Ms. Sergeant Kosi not only accessing the one document, but the possibility of even accessing others, surely it must tell you that that may well be an indication that the process has been corrupted. As you sit there, you do not know whether he had actually accessed other documents, but you had seen that at the very least he had accessed one. So on what basis can you say, as you sit there, that the process could not possibly have been corrupted?
Chair, I've agreed to you in terms of my concerns and him obtaining the document. I've also agreed with you in terms of his prospective ability to obtain further documentation. He could have. I've agreed to that. I did not deny that.
With the possibility of corrupting the process. My focus is on Commissioner Baloyi's question. So with the possibility of the entire process being corrupted, yes or no?
I have agreed to that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mnisi, just one from me. Please go to page 52 of bundle 3.
Page 52.
Yes,
Are you there?
I'm there.
So this is the letter from the Hawks,
Yes,
DPCI,
yes,
addressed to the office of the CFO,
yes.
City of Tshwane Municipality. That would be your office, correct?
Correct?
And they say the Hawks are investigating alleged case of corruption against the City of Tshwane municipal officials attached to the SCM department, together with other finance officials. Do you see that?
I see that.
And then they ask for various documents relating to certain companies
Yes,
and certain officials.
yes,
So this is a document that the Hawks have addressed to the City of Tshwane, correct?
correct?
And you have shared this document with Sergeant Nkosi, correct?
Correct?
And then all the communication with the investigating officers in this case, you have also shared that with Sergeant Nkosi, correct?
Correct?
And the City of Tshwane's response to the Hawks, you've also shared it with Sergeant Nkosi to review before the response is sent to the Hawks, correct?
Correct?
And that is on page 65. If you want to satisfy yourself, you can have a look at it, but it is there. And it goes to my issue, which I raised with you earlier today and again yesterday. Your propensity to share with Sergeant Nkosi documents that are confidential to the City of Tshwane. What business does Sergeant Nkosi have with the Hawks investigating tender irregularities in the city of Tshwane?
Chair, first of all, this was a fake and a fraudulent letter that was sent by imposters, I'm going to put it that way, imposters purporting to be from the DPCI. We've got a process that's validated and tested in terms of how we deal with investigations, organs of state, Chapter 9 institutions. The protocol that is followed, firstly, any communications must be addressed to the city manager. It's in standard protocol. We deal with these issues on a daily basis. We've seen a number of these communications daily. Secondly, there must be sufficient communication and reference information in the document. If you look at this document, firstly, it doesn't even have a tender number, nor does it have any official communication instruments to communicate with the purported investigation. I'll give you a sequence of events of how this emanates.
I allowed you to answer and you didn't even answer my question, but I was patient because I wanted to give you a chance. Let's assume that this letter is fake. The first time you get it, you don't know that it is fake, correct?
No, I know because I analyzed the letter.
Yes.
I look at the letter, I analyze the process that's followed, I pick up anomalies. I know immediately it's fake.
Where was it sent to, this letter?
It was left at reception.
At
Census
reception where?
At the city.
At the city of Tshwane?
Yes, at the city of Tshwane.
It is a letter left at the reception at the city of Tshwane. What business does Sergeant Nkosi have?
It was a test of legitimacy. I needed him to give me advice on how I can take this matter up further. I needed to ensure that these individuals are trapped so that behavior of this nature does not carry on any further.
Did you report it to the police station?
I was waiting for advice from Sergeant Nkosi in terms of how we deal with this. Even if you look at the communication that you refer to on, I think, page 64, I commit to submitting these documents to the purported individuals, CC the supply chain management officials. The plan was to test legitimacy and to trap these individuals.
So two years later, have you reported it to the police, to SAPS?
No, I haven't reported it to SAPS.
But you, in a City of Tshwane letterhead, sent a draft response to Sergeant Nkosi to review.
I was asking for advice on how to trap these individuals.
In a City of Tshwane letterhead, you sent a draft response to Sergeant Nkosi to review. Is that correct?
It's not, it's an email with my signature. It's not a letter. That's my signature that's appearing there. So I was saying, did I cover the contents correctly? Will this help me catch these individuals in order to enable me to report this case? In short, this was an unlawful letter. And there's no unlawful conduct for myself because this is not an official document for the city. You'll be aware, Chair, that these individuals disappeared from here. We sent a team to go there at 10 a.m. to deliver documentation. When they were being contacted, they completely disappeared. That number stopped working as well.
You see, you're telling me about the facts, and I'm not asking you about the facts, but I accept that that is your answer. My question is really why you involved Sergeant Nkosi in matters that relate to a letter sent to City of Tshwane. Forget about it's fraudulent, you are aware that it's fraudulent. You've already said yourself, it is sent to the City of Tshwane, it is left at the offices. My question is, why do you involve Sergeant Nkosi in City of Tshwane matters?
It's not a City of Tshwane matter, it's an unlawful event. I needed to trap this individual so that I can open a case against him. He is a member of Hawks. He should be aware of the process on how I can escalate any irregularities of this nature. I was asking for advice on how to escalate the matter further.
So if a fraud happens at the City of Tshwane's offices because it is a fraud, you are at liberty to involve Sergeant Nkosi, not internal fraud people, but Sergeant Nkosi. He's the one who must advise you on what to do. He's the one that must comment on your draft responses on letters that are dropped off at the City of Tshwane's offices.
Unlawful letters that are not official documentation. The procedures are not followed up. I will even give you an example. We had a matter of this nature where I had my first encounter with the senior counsel, Cancellation. They had a matter where he was dealing with another organ of state. The protocols that were followed, him and the representatives he was working with communicated to the city manager. This is a matter that was now delegated to me officially by the city manager that we have received an inquiry of this nature. CFO, you need to deal with this accordingly. I then action it accordingly. Protocol is not followed. This is not a lawful letter.
So if there's a fraudulent inquiry made at the city of Tshwane, the port of call is Sergeant Nkosi to advise on how to respond to that fraudulent letter sent to the city of Tshwane. That's your answer, as I understand it.
No, that's not my answer.
What is your answer?
My answer is I asked for advice because he is a member of the Hawks and he should know the escalation
He's a
processes.
member of?
He is the member of DPCI, he's a SEPS official. He should know the processes of escalating these matters. From my perspective, this was a good deed. This was in good faith. I needed advice on how to deal with the situation moving forward.
And was it reported to the police? I think that was my last question. You said you were waiting for advice from him, but that was in 2024. So what has happened in the last 18 months?
Since the disappearance of these individuals, I guess I was overtaken by events because they never ever came up, they never ever called, nor did they ever respond to this form of correspondence that was sent.
You never reported this attempted fraud?
Officially, no. I was overtaken by events, the individuals disappeared. When I tried to contact them to say I'm here, the number just didn't work, didn't go through any longer.
Does it mean, you're resorting to Sergeant Nkosi on something like this, does it mean that the city of Tshwane doesn't have its own internal investigations department or people that could have investigated this for you?
It does have that, but
And why did you decide to go to Sergeant Nkosi instead?
it investigates internal matters. Their matters for issues that occur within the city. They are not authorized to investigate other organs of state.
No, but this is a matter that is occurring within the city. You've been addressed in your official capacity as the chief financial officer, so it is a city business. It's not a personal matter. It says CFO, City of Tshwane, so it is a city matter, and you don't refer it to the legal department, you don't refer it to your internal investigators, you don't refer it to the city manager. You say there's protocol, it should have gone to the city manager. You don't say, city manager received this, I'm giving it to you because that's our protocol, that these kind of things should be coming to you. You go to, and then you don't lay a complaint with the SAPS, and if I'm not mistaken, they'll correct me, Sergeant Nkosi is not a member of the Hawks. You don't lay a complaint with the SAPS, you go to your friend to help you solve a City of Tshwane matter. Even if it's a fraud, it's a City of Tshwane matter. Can you just explain why you choose not to follow protocol? You say we have a protocol. You don't follow protocol. Why?
Chair, I do follow protocol.
No, you didn't follow protocol. Your protocol does not include Sergeant Nkosi. Can we settle that? Nkosi is a member of the public. He's no different from me. So you going to him is not to follow protocol. And I've said to you, and I've indicated to you, bodies internally that you could have gone to, your internal investigation people whom you say you have. You have a legal department, and you have the city manager that you tell us correspondence is addressed to the city manager if there are issues, but you don't escalate this to the city manager to decide what to do with it. You instead go to your friend.
Okay. Chair, firstly, group audit and risk and legal investigate internal matters. They can't investigate external institutions. That was my understanding. That's still my understanding now. I couldn't have referred this matter to them. Firstly, I needed to ensure that I find processes in place to escalate this accordingly within the SEP structures. This was me asking for advice on what process I need to undertake to raise this matter accordingly to the relevant officials within SEPS. It was a SEPS-related issue where an unlawful...
Did you formally, when you gave this to Sergeant Nkosi, are you saying that's you reporting to the SEPS? And if your answer is yes, then I leave it at that. I will not ask you any further questions. Are you saying that when you handed this over, that's you escalating it to the SEPS?
I can't find an easy way out, and the answer is no. Me sending to this to Sergeant Nkosi, I needed to understand the escalation processes on if I receive an issue of this nature, which I've ascertained myself, it's a fake letter, it's unlawful. What steps do I need to follow to raise this accordingly within the SEPS?
Okay.
That was the reason I sent it to Sergeant Nkosi. I needed advice and guidance, which he provided me.
But you did more than getting the steps. You actually, as Commissioner Khumalo says, prepared a draft response
Yes.
on Tshwane communication record, which is your email with a signature. So you prepare a response to which Sergeant Nkosi makes an input. So you did more than In fact, it is not correct to say you were asking and he provided you with how to escalate this. You actually, with him, started dealing with the matter, responding until these people disappeared. I mean, there are WhatsApp messages here where people are being asked, who are you? Where can I come and deliver documents? That's more than, or in fact, has nothing to do with escalating.
Okay, from my perspective, there was nothing wrong asking for guidance from a subject matter expert. He seemed like a subject matter expert. He knew the process to be followed. He guided me accordingly. There was nothing wrong with it.
That's your answer. Thank you.
Ms. Vandenhoefer, I think we've reached the stage where you should indicate whether you will be re-examining. And our practice is to ask upfront what you will be re-examining on. I know the evidence has ended just now, and I do not know if you have applied your mind to that.
At this point, our indication is that we do want to re-examine.
Yes.
And we would like to have an opportunity to do so. But in the lateness of the hour, I assume we were going to have to arrange for a date.
We certainly cannot say no to that. And what did you say? I'm very sorry, I was whispering to Commissioner Baloyi. What did you say about the lateness of the hour?
I said I assume we'll have to arrange for a date
for
the
that.
re-examination.
For that, yeah. I think we cannot avoid that. Let's just adjourn without this will actually afford, an adjournment will actually afford you an opportunity to put together beforehand the